Hey guys, how's everyone doing tonight? I hope you guys are having a great Sunday and a blessed Feast of the Assumption. That was also yesterday. I hope everyone is doing great. We're probably going to have a smaller stream tonight just because I know there's a big debate going on Jesse Winfrey's stream. So I'll try to keep the stream shorter than usual so that people can watch that if you want to. They're going to be debating immigration, so that'll be interesting. But just to kind of have a different change of pace, we're still going through some of the parts in the Catechism of the Council of Trent. Particularly, we're going through the parts on the signs of the true church. And that I think is very significant when talking to Protestants or talking to even Eastern Orthodox, who may agree with you on the problems of sola scriptura or sola fide, which are hallmarks of Protestant epistemology, which suffer from just innate issues. But they might disagree about some of the teachings of the fathers of the church. They might bring up certain quotes that seem to contradict the papacy and whatnot. And so the best way to resolve some of these disputes is just through philosophy and to compare and look at the attributes of God and then to apply those to the attributes of his church. And before I begin, though, there's something I found, or I guess I didn't find it, but I brought it out. So to talk to one of my friends, Svetnaz Groiper, we were talking about J.R.R. Tolkien. He was a very famous Catholic. He lived around the time of World War I to World War II. He was a friend of C.S. Lewis's, and he wrote, of course, The Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion, and he designed an entire universe, actually. So I have here the Tolkien, the Illustrated Encyclopedia, and this is, and I forgot just how crazy this is, but there's just so many stories, and here's some of the drawings there. You can kind of see that. And this right there, that was the Lonely Mountain. So this was written long before the movie came out. And so it's just based on all the writings. Some of them, most of them were probably unpublished by Tolkien. The Silmarillion was put together by Christopher Tolkien, his son. And it was actually, as far as I remember, Christopher Tolkien never gave permission to turn it into a movie because he didn't like the way that they had turned The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit into the movies. So, his copyright's eventually going to run out, because J.R.R. Tolkien has been dead for a long time, but, so, I don't know if they'll turn it into a movie. I know Amazon was working on doing something like that. There's actually some really interesting maps I was going to look for to show you guys, because basically the way Tolkien saw what he was doing was, he saw it as if he was coming up, here we go, with the history of the world. So people talk about the Hyperboreans and the Thule, and it's they find ways to talk about Atlantis and tie that all into these esoteric practices. Well, let me see if I can expand this camera real quick as well. But basically, J.R.R. Tolkien had his own version, and it's really something else. One second, let me see here, just so you guys can see it better. Alright, hopefully that'll be a little better. I gotta go this way. Okay, so basically, you can kind of see he had his own version of Pangea here that he talked about, and then he had his own story, his own creation story, and then he has different iterations of what the world looks like, and then eventually the world turns into what looks today as the present world, and basically turns Africa into the Far Harad. The Middle Earth is basically becomes where Gondor and the Shire are, and then the Sunlands becomes the Americas, and then there's this one island called Numenor. I'll just put that to the side now, and that's basically the equivalent of Atlantis. And the book reads very much as if this is the history of the world. So I just thought that was something cool to bring out the show, people. Sometime I'll have to do a very esoteric Lord of the Rings stream, just talking about the Tolkien universe. So like I said, we are going through the Catechism of the Council of Trent here. This is one of the best catechisms you can get. It was written in the Counter-Reformation. It was published by Saint Pope Pius V. And we had talked about last time about the necessity of the church to be one, to be unified. And so I'm just going to read the last paragraph of that section here. And it says, "Moreover, the apostles, writing to the Corinthians, tells them that there is but one and the same Spirit who imparts grace to the faithful, as the soul communicates life to the members of the body, exhorting the Ephesians," and this is like Paul speaking here, "to preserve this unity." He says, quote, "Be careful to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace, one body and one Spirit. As the human body consists of many members, animated by one soul or one substance, which gives sight to the sight to the eyes, hearing to the ears, and to the other senses the power of discharging their respective functions, so the mystical body of Christ, which is the church, is composed of many faithful. The hope, but of course we share the same substance, which is this institution, the Catholic Church. The hope to which we are called is also one, as the apostle tells us, in the same place, for we all hope for the same consummation, the eternal and happy life," which is to say heaven, of course. "Finally, the faith which all are bound to believe and to profess is one faith. Let there be no schisms amongst you," says the apostle, "and baptism, which is the seal of our Christian faith, is also one." So, of course, that is something that's very significant for the church to be united, something that, of course, the Protestants don't share. There are something like 30,000 different denominations, and there's quite a bit. And so there's lots of schisms and breaks that happen. And yet there's only one faith, there's only one Lord, and there's only one baptism. And so that is something that's very important for us to share. And if you look at the Eastern Orthodox Church, although they share very similar, I would say uniformly their doctrines are very similar, they're not really one insofar as like the patriarchs are constantly at these kind of like this proxy war with each other. The way in the Catholic Church is you have, a bishop, and they reside over like a diocese, and the bishop can dispense certain sacramental powers to the priests of the diocese, because the bishops are the ones who have the apostolic succession. So the priests rely on the bishops to give them sacramental power of confession and holy matrimony. The bishop has to give them that confirmation. But the problem with the Eastern Orthodox Church is because and this just happened like a year ago, the Patriarch of Russia and the Patriarch of Ukraine split. They're no longer in they're no longer in communication, simply because of geopolitical issues. It was simply over something that was material, that they no longer are talking with each other. And so now there's basically a proxy war between, okay, which territory does this bishop control, which one does that bishop control. And so of course these splits are not something that the church should be undergoing. And there's actually a verse in John, and I have the Dewey Rames Bible with me, just so people don't see this is in the Catholic Bible too. This is one of the better translations. It's kind of they speak in a kind of a similar way as the King James Bible. There's another Catholic translation called I think it's the what is it, the New Living? No, that doesn't sound right. There's another one that they use for the Novus Ordo Masses, but this is the one that they'll use for the translations and the Latin missals. When they're translating the Latin Vulgate over, they use the Dewey Rames version because it was translated directly from Latin Vulgate. And so in John 17:21, Jesus is telling his apostles that they all may be one, as thou, Father, in me, and I, Jesus, in thee, that they may also be one in us, that the world may believe that thou hast sent me. So Jesus is exhorting his apostles that they must be one collective body, so that the world must know that this is from God, that this isn't something that is arbitrary, is just sprung up into some temporary cult, because we've seen that with all cults. They appear for a brief time and then they cease to exist. And I think the best examples are and even with heresies, the heresy of Arianism, and that one existed quite a bit. Arius lived in around the 3rd century, around the 3rd, 4th century, and the heresy of, I think it was around the 2nd, 3rd century. And the heresy of Arianism lasted all the way until the 7th century. It preceded the Council of Nicaea. It succeeded the Council of Nicaea. And even after that, like, they had declared formally that it was a heretical to say that Jesus was not consubstantial with the Father. Basically, the heresy of Arianism said that Jesus was a man just like anyone else, and that he was subordinate to the Father. He just had certain characteristics that of the divine. And so this heresy was basically at war with the Orthodox Christians. And at one time, it almost took over all of Europe. There was very few bishops left that were teaching the Orthodox faith. One of those was Athanasius, and now he's Saint Athanasius. And in fact, the Arians took over Rome. And I believe that this is like kind of speculation, that they forced, I think it was Pope Liberius, to excommunicate Athanasius. But yeah, it was a very dark time for the Christian church. The true faithful were all in hiding as this counterfeit church was in charge. And it's a good example, something to think about today. And when we're talking about like the Protestant heresy, or even we're talking about some of the novelties that have come after the Second Vatican Council that are these ecumenicalism and these other new doctrines that have been introduced, and liturgical abuses that we see today, things like this, then we see the church in somewhat of a crisis. But we have to remember that the church has existed for 2,000 years and has continued to exist. And so you can look at some of the like heresies like those, and they've lasted a long time, but they ultimately cease to exist. And so I think that's part of the reason why I just said we have to be one body, is because a unified collective organization with one doctrine is more likely to be able to survive the onsets and the assailments of the culture and the changing times. And it's obviously, that means it comes from God. Artistic Riper says each bishop has equal authority, and when they disagree, all hell breaks loose. Exactly, that is one of the biggest issues with the Orthodox Church. It's because there is no, that central figure that can call an ecumenical council and can settle, how an ecumenical council can like decide like on doctrine. So just saying that all the bishops like vote on something, that's like, I think there's like even a term for it that means it's like a particular kind of heresy. I think it was like called congregationalism or something like that. But basically, like, there's a certain descriptive like term and for like heresy, where like it's just like a democracy within the ecclesiastical framework. But if it's the Pope who decides how like a doctrine ought to be decided on, he's the one who calls councils. That, of course, gives it its structure. But now we're going to be talking about the holiness of the church tonight. It was kind of just a recap from last week, and we were talking about why the church has to be holy. Of course, we're talking through the phrase within the Creed, Article 9, I believe in the Holy Catholic Church and the communion of saints. So now we are on the phrase holy. The second mark of the church is holiness. As we learn from these words of the Prince of the Apostles, you are a chosen generation, a holy nation. The church is called holy because she is consecrated and dedicated to God. For so other things, when set apart and dedicated to the worship of God, were wont to be called holy, even though they were material. Examples of this in the Old Law were vessels, vestments, and altars. In the same sense, the firstborn were dedicated to the Most High God were also called holy. It should be, and this, of course, a reference to some of the Old Testament traditions. Of course, they had their own altars and ways of sacrificing animals and whatnot in the synagogues. It should not be deemed a matter of surprise that the church, although numbering among her children many sinners, is called holy. For as those who profess any art, even though they depart from its rules, are still called artists, so in like manner the faithful, although offending in many things and violating the engagements to which they have pledged themselves, are still called holy, because they have been made the people of God, hence have consecrated themselves to Christ by faith and baptism. Hence St. Paul calls the Corinthians sanctified and holy, although it is certain that among them there were some whom he severely rebuked as carnal and also charged with grosser crimes. If you read the Corinthians, he talks about sodomy, and I believe even says like there are some people that were sleeping with like their mother-in-laws. So, and this, of course, the reason why the Catechism of the Council of Trent brings this up is because this is right on the tails of the Reformation. This was the Catholics' response to it, and so one of the critiques that came out of the Protestant Reformation by people like Martin Luther was a call out of all the liturgical abuses by the clergy and even by certain popes like Alexander VI and even Leo X, who were known to have large parties, to be very deviant, promiscuous, to not really follow a lot of the church's own teachings. And so and this even applies even to this day, where we see clerical abuse, and we even see the unfortunate rise of like the mistreatment of children and the cover-up of that with Cardinal McCarrick. Just recently we saw that in Pennsylvania, and there was another example of that, I believe, in Boston as well, in the earlier 2000s, of like just institutional priestly abuse and sexualization of children, which is awful, of course, and this is something the church has condemned. But we have to keep in mind that that isn't an indictment of the whole institution of the church, where these people have still pledged themselves to God, and so these people, although that their individual actions are unholy, they're them pledging themselves as priests, and that more abstract, broader sense, the church is still, that which God has set apart. And so that's something to always keep in mind, so that the men can always, we always will deviate from the moral law. No one is perfect, but the church as a whole, and in terms of the church as like this institution of priests, they're all been dedicated to God. And so like it said, and this is just a great example, that they may still be artists while they deviate from the rules of the art. So that's good. It's something that applies and is applicable even to this day, which is, I think, very interesting, that the Catechism of the Council of Trent is already on that. All right, so then the Catechism continues saying, the church is also to be called holy because she is united to her holy head, as his body, that is to say, Christ the Lord, the foundation of all holiness, from whom flows the graces of the Holy Spirit and the riches of the divine bounty. St. Augustine, interpreting those words of the prophet, preserve my soul, for I am holy, thus admirably expresses himself. Let the body of Christ boldly say, let also that one man, exclaiming from the ends of the earth, boldly say, with his head and under his head, I am holy, for he received the grace of holiness, the grace of baptism, and of the remission of sins. And a little further on, if all Christians and all the faithful, having been baptized in Christ, have put him on according to these words of the apostles, quote, as many of you has been baptized in Christ, have put on Christ, unquote, if they are made members of his body, and yet say they are not holy, they do an injury to their head, and whose members are holy. So basically saying that the church is holy because it is Christ's bride. It is something that Christ has invested with his own holiness, or Christ himself, of course, is holy. God, the traditional concept of God is someone who is omnipotent, he's all-powerful, he's omnibenevolent, he's all good. It has to say that he is maximally powerful, maximally good, and maximally perfect, morally speaking, in every single possible world. And there's ways in even classical theism to back this up through the concept of God being pure actuality. That's probably something I want to get to into a different stream, but there's ways even through philosophy to back up the concept that God is these attributes of God, that he is something that is all-powerful, and he's the greatest, the maximally greatest possible being. So he's the greatest, the most powerful being in every possible world that you could imagine, more or less. And so that's the reason why I say the maximally the greatest possible being, is to get around some of the loopholes the paradoxes that are thrown at Christians by atheists, like, oh, if God is so great, can he build a rock that he couldn't move? Something that would, of course, contradict the nature of God. So that's why we say the greatest possible being, because something like that would be impossible. It would be a violation of the laws of logic, which logic comes from the orderliness, and God is, of course, that part of his nature is to be orderly. Disorder is not an attribute of God. So that was that part there. And of course, they also reference, of course, the sacraments, which is something that God has given us to become holy, to receive his graces. And I think it even goes further on to talk about more sacraments, so I'll just keep reading. Moreover, the Church alone has the legitimate worship of sacrifice and the salutary use of the sacraments, which are the efficacious instruments of divine grace used by God to produce true holiness. Hence, to possess true holiness, we must belong to this Church. The Church, therefore, it is clear, is holy, and holy because she is the body of Christ, by whom she is sanctified, in whose blood she is washed. Now, one of the interesting things that the Protestant Reformations, they wanted to change the concept of the resurrection into something that is about the atonement of sins, that when Christ died, that he was atoning for our sins. And I don't think this is something that Catholics necessarily contradict, but the way Catholics want to focus on it is more so the resurrection and death of Christ is about Christus Victus, that Christ has defeated death, as the Apostle Paul says, where death is thy victory, where, O grave, is thy but where grave is thy praise, or something. I forget the exact quote, but basically he has defeated hell, he has defeated death, which are these things that have come about since the fall of man. By Christ being dead to sin and then rising again, he is now able to supply for us the graces that are necessary for salvation. And one of the things to remind people is that Protestants often think that, oh, these graces come in this very abstract sense, that we can telecommunicate with God in the sense that God can hear our thoughts, and so we can just sit down and pray, and that's all we have to do. And it's true that God, of course, is omnipotent, so of course he knows our thoughts. However, God also knows that not all of us are so abstract to think in this way. He understands that the way we often learn, the way we often think, and the way we often reason with our own ourselves, we're just as much emotional beings as rational beings, is through the material world around us. So sometimes we can't just think really hard about these concepts and hypostatize them, which is to say you turn something abstract into something concrete. Instead, he gave us these concrete ways through these physical sacraments like baptism that represents in this metaphorical sense what is happening spiritually. And a way to think about it is that often it would be presumptuous of us to assume that our boss is going to give us vacation time just because there may be some expectation that he ought to. As Christians, our job is to be humble, to assume a role of submission and obedience to God, knowing that we are infinitely worthy of death and hell. And so it's not our job to be presumptuous that we will be saved and brought into salvation. That it's not the kind of characteristic that we ought to possess. And so instead, God gives us an assurance. He gives us a special type of hope that we can have without that presumption, which is almost a hubris in a sense, by giving us these physical reminders, not only through Jesus, who of course is the most physical reminder of our salvation, but also through even these immediate sacraments of confession. When the priest says, te absolvo ergo Patris Filius Spiritus Sanctus, or whatever, I absolve you in the name of the Father, the Son, and Holy Ghost. He is absolving, he is speaking, of course, through the role of Christ, who of course is the only one who can absolve sins, but he is the Ultros Christi. He is saying he's taking the place of Christ in that moment. And so it is these physical manifestations of the sacraments that we're able to receive hope and confidence and assurance in that we are receiving this efficacious grace that will animate us. And of course, that doesn't mean that we just give up striving to live moral lives. We have to cooperate with this grace. The way that works is something that's, personally for me, I think it's very mystical, not something that we're going to be able to get a good science of how the grace interacts with our free will. But what we know is that the reason why we're able to rise out of our spiritual depravity is because the grace is there animating us. And when we find ourselves doing the right thing because this is the right thing to do, then we can look back and reflect on God's grace at work in our lives. Let me read it quickly what you guys are writing right now. Julius Bazaar says, FYI, I just want to let you know I personally don't care, but Pertos religious streams need to be X-tagged. Oh, really? Oh, okay. Good to know. Thank you for letting me know, big guy. Let me just make sure that... Does this guy, have clout or something? Dang, he's trying to cock block us here. He's trying to tell me I gotta get the X stream. Alright, I'll just put it on just to be safe. Thanks for letting me know. Hey, what's going on, Rem? Good to see you, big guy. They might suspend your account if they see you streaming this. Okay, thank you for letting me know. I just reached 200, so that would be bad. We are watching the anime rightist. Yes. Good to see you, big guy. It's because DLive is actually Chinese owned, and any religious content is 18 plus under CCP law. Wow, I did not know that. Thank you for telling me. Wow, you heard it here first, guys. Effects of communism on China's China, interesting. Yeah, I better not mention the fact that bring up the underground church and the fact that the CCP official bishops are all illicitly ordained. I better not bring that up. That might offend the Chinese. So better keep that one to myself. Hide that power level. Which is funny because the Pope got really mad at Archbishop Lefebvre when he supposedly illicitly ordained his own bishops, consecrated with them at the authority of Rome. And China does it like whenever they want to. So I don't know. And the Pope doesn't get as mad for some reason. Yeah, Catholicism is not a Chinese characteristic. It doesn't mean, of course, the Chinese can't convert to Catholicism, but they're very opposed to it at the moment. Where was I now? So that was actually, I hope you really enjoyed that monologue, because I think I said something very important there about the necessity of physical sacraments. All right, where are we now? Okay, and then there's one more verse I wanted to show you guys. And here we go. I'm just going to show the Bible verse here, because it's a little better than the version I have. It's a little more clear. When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you. This is John 16:13. When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth. For he will not speak on his own authority, but whatever he hears, he will speak, and he will declare to you the things that are to come. So this is Jesus, of course, talking to the apostles. This is his last sermon he is basically giving to them before he is to be crucified. And he says, I will send you this helper, the Spirit, obviously the Holy Ghost, who will guide you into all truth. So that is to say, he will guide us into being holy. The church's sacraments are going to be holy. The church's dogma are going to be holy. And it's very interesting, of course, the Protestants think that the dogma was corrupted. And so now we're going on to the next part, which is Catholic. I believe in one holy Catholic Church. And the word Catholic, even Anglicans will use the Nicene Creed. Even Protestants believe in the Nicene Creed. Most Protestants accept the first 5 ecumenical councils. So the word Catholic here, according to the Catechism of the Council of Trent, and this is what we're going through, says the third mark of the Church is that she is Catholic. That is universal. And justly is she called Catholic, because as St. Augustine says, she is diffused by the splendor of one faith from the rising to the setting sun. Unlike states of human institution or sects of heretics, she is not confined to any one country or class of men, but embraces within the amplitude of her love all mankind, whether barbarians or Scythians, slaves or freemen, male or female, Scythians, I think that's how you say that. Therefore it is written, Thou hast redeemed us to God in thy blood out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation, and hast made us to our God a kingdom. It goes on to say, speaking of the church, David says, quote, Ask me, and I will give thee the Gentiles for thy inheritance, and the utmost parts of the earth for thy possession. And also, I will be mindful of Rahab and of Babylon, knowing me, and man is born in her. And of course, at the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says that we are to be like a shining city on a hill. That is to say that we are to be something that all people and all nations and all times are able to see and recognize as the true church of Jesus Christ. And of course, God wills that all should be saved. That's another Bible verse. And so it makes sense that, of course, his church should reach out to where everyone is at their various states in life and in time. And one of the things that the Catholic Church does very well is it has many different rites that appeal to different cultural parts of the world. For example, there's the Melkite rite and the Chalcedon rite, and these are both very similar to their liturgies of the Eastern Orthodox Church. However, they are in communion with Rome. In fact, I was at a wedding for a traditional Catholic, and there's a Melkite priest there, and I had a great conversation with him. He had a huge family. In his family, they had their own liturgy, and it was in Greek. All his kids knew Greek, almost fluently. They were very young. And in fact, like they were just spitting out the Greek alphabet to me. And like I know a little bit about the Greek alphabet through like some like philosophy classes we use Greek letters, and I was just so impressed. And they knew like if the priest said, okay, on the propers, which are like these prayers that change daily in the liturgy, the priest says, okay, what are the propers for August 17th? They would just be able to rattle it off like that. They just like had this all memorized and they're able to sing it. It was very impressive to see. But of course, he was united with the Pope. He recognized the papacy. So even though he had, like, was very similar to Eastern Orthodox, and he was even telling me some of the divergence of their some of the ways that they do things, their traditions, then the Latin Rite, they're still united with the true church. Whereas the Eastern Orthodox Church is almost the exact opposite. It's fractured along these ethnic lines. You have the Greek Orthodox, the Coptic Orthodox, the Russian Orthodox, Ukrainian Orthodox, or Oriental Orthodox. They like their own things. So they're like, I think those are like the Coptics and the Egyptian or the Ethiopian Orthodox. And like they all like very much centered in their own country, and if they reach out to other places, they only basically reach out to those places that have like little hodgepodges of their own ethnic groups. So they are trying to reach out to like me, generally speaking. Like if a Greek Orthodox Church appears where I live, they're trying to reach out to like the Greek community in that area. They're not going to try to proselytize to me. At least, I mean, maybe they might argue that in a certain sense they do, but I just like from my own observation, it doesn't seem that they have that same emphasis on proselytization. Hey, what's up, Dump Trick? Good to see you, big guy. I'm glad to see so many people here. So again, we're going through the Catechism of the Council of Trent about the Catholicity of the Church. That is, say it has to be universal. And in fact, let me pull up all the rites of the Catholic Church. There's like a map of them, and like a lot of them are very like curtailed towards like different monasteries. Like for example, the Dominican rite, the Carmelite rite. These are rites that are like that were started by like friars, and so they're very like kind of idiosyncratic to like different like local regions. But I guess here it doesn't say. I guess maybe yeah, it doesn't say, because Chalcedon, Melkite, I know, and there are Byzantines that are within the scope of Rome as well. Yeah, I know the Coptics, Ethiopians, Alexandrians, and Maronites, they all have in schism right now. But yeah, so that kind of just is to evince some of the universality of the Catholic Church. Dumpchick says, I'm making FPS with anime girls. Oh, cool. You will like it. I just need a couple of months. Okay, cool. I look forward to it, big guy. I see you're working on like FPS, so that's like, what do you mean, like profile pictures, or is FPS is like frame rate, right? I was like, maybe need to clarify what I mean by FPS. Frames per second with anime girls. Maybe I'm like having a retard moment there. I don't know what FPS stands for, but forgive me. Maybe you could just clarify that. Charitably. First person shooter. Oh, okay. Got you. Oh, that'll be fun. Like video games with them. Yeah, sorry, I was a hereditar moment. Why not make it a team shooter, TS? I guess, is that like team shooter, I suppose? Yeah. Okay. Let me just finish this part, and then I'll open it up to like Q&As. And then we'll do the apostolic nature of the church and figures of the church. We'll save that for next week, because I want to really get into a deep dive in the apostolic part of the church. I think this is something that doesn't really get into, because there's a lot of evidence from history that the church is apostolic. That is to say, there's apostolic succession, that the apostles passed down their authority. But they're like, you have to be a little bit more like you have to do a little more digging to kind of see some of these things in the Bible. But I will read now the last part of this part on the Catholic line in the creed. Moreover, to this church, built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, belong all the faithful who have existed from Adam to the present day, or who shall exist in the profession of the true faith to the end of time, all of whom are founded and raised upon the one cornerstone of Christ, who made both one and announced peace to them that are near and to them that are far. She is also called universal because all who desire eternal salvation must cling to and embrace her, like those who entered the ark to escape the perishing in the flood. This note of Catholicity, therefore, is to be taught as a most reliable criterion by which to distinguish the true from a false church. And that I absolutely agree with. Is one of the most blatant signs of the true church is its Catholicity. And like it said there, the church is often compared to Noah's Ark. It's the survival mechanism to save us from the tribulations and the trials that go on in our earth with sin and death and decadency. And it is this ark that is the church whose trajectory is towards heaven that we must cling to. And schismatic groups and heretics are basically just taking pieces of the ship and just throwing themselves overboard. And so they might think that they're swimming, towards the eternal shore, towards the Western havens, to use the Lord of the Rings reference. But unfortunately, J.R.R. Tolkien, he knew what was going on. But that's a reference to earlier in the show. I was talking about Lord of the Rings, but where was I going with this? But they will ultimately perish in the seas if they are not clinging to the one true church. And that is why I think that the closer you are to the Catholic Church, the longer you will survive. So that's why when we see something like probably like the Arian heresy last as long as it did, is because it was able to cloak itself in most of the traditions of the church. It was able to corrupt some of the dogmas related to the Trinitarianism. And so, but something like Protestantism, which is completely distorted the church. Now we're seeing just so many splinters. It'll be only probably in a few centuries. My prediction is it'll be completely dissipated. So let me see what you guys are thinking about all this. Third person shooter says Swollen Sea. Oh, he's talking about Dump Trick Ass. He wants that to be the video game. Because first person shooters are common, says Dump Trick. Gotcha. Alright, any questions related to the theology aspect? That's kind of cool that you're making a video game. Gotta admit. It's pretty cool. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to say about the passage. Oh, yeah. Let me just pull up some music. I also wanted to add that there's when Jesus, before he left, he told his apostles, I will be with you always, even to the ends of the earth. And he even told Peter that he would give him the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Let me pull that up. It's Matthew 16:18, and there's a part of it. I'm not interested so much in the key part. So yeah, Matthew 16. There's actually another part in it. But basically, the church will endure for all time. The gates, yeah, so this is the one I'm thinking of. And of course, in 16:17 it says, Blessed are you, Peter, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood. And I tell you, Peter, in 18, that on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not overcome it. That's a very important line. So no matter what is thrown at the Catholic Church, no matter, or at least, the true church, no matter what tribulations it faces and trials, it will always persevere. And that is because the gates of hell, like Jesus said, will not prevail against it. And so a Protestant says that the original church that was founded was corrupted by and this is something you hear a lot. It was corrupted when Constantine basically made it legal for Christians to be to worship in Rome and kind of elevate it to a level of the state religion. Often they say that's when the church became ecclesiastical. It became corrupted with all these superficial dogmas and superficial rituals, and rather it's the opposite, or I should say rather that contradicts directly the Bible. That means the gates of hell would have seceded against the church, and it would have seceded against the church for up to several 500 years before Martin Luther came around. So that's something to keep in mind, of course. when we're looking at like the signs of the true church. Its universality, its holiness. That kind of is implicit in there, that it both in its holiness, its universality, and of course its apostolic nature, is that it would continue ad infinitum. Hey, what's up, Bram? Good to see you, big guy. I recognize you. Great patty little pick, says to spend on us. Okay. Artistic rape says Mormons said the church was corrupted too. Yeah, once the apostles died. Yeah, exactly. They say the same thing. So the question I asked them then, yeah, did the gates of hell secede then? Because it sure sounds like it. The way Baptists try to get around this, it's really funny actually, because they recognize what like I'm saying here. The way like it's not like this is something like novel I'm bringing up. The way Baptists have tried to get around it is that they look at all these like heresies that have broken out and try to like create their own apostolic line through like looking at these various heresies and trying to like draw pinpoints and say, oh, this is where I trace my our lineage back to. It's like pretty wacky stuff. I think anyone who has like any knowledge of church history knows that like that they don't resemble whatever you are to the present day Baptists. Some of the earlier heresies, Gnosticism and Arianism. So yeah, that's again the sign of the church: holiness and its unity and Catholicity. And I'll do a whole deep dive on the apostolic nature of the church next time. So I gotta go, because when you're talking about that, you have to talk about who the apostles were. There's some of the powers and like the role that they were given that signifies that this is an official role, and also some like indicators through history and through the teachings of the church, and including that in the Bible and oral traditions where it talks about passing on that authority. A church can be based as Rome representative, but it's cucked now. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I read about again. Was about, you know, there will always be sinners in the church, and when it comes to the dogma is still based. The dogma hasn't changed insofar as like contraception, abortion, gay marriage. All these things are still like mortal sins in the Catholic faith. That's never changed. It's the rhetoric of the people who are in charge that has changed. And like I said, that the church has gone through very tough times with heretics and heterodox members. So. But remember, they've all dedicated themselves to Christ, and so the church can still be called holy. We still have the right sacraments, even if it's harder to find ones that are done reverently. And there's a really interesting Bible verse. I think it says, like, there's like a verse somewhere in, I think, Paul's letter, where it says, yeah, it's like, it says that he's a priest. Okay, it was this. Christians believe that Jesus is the Messiah spoken of as a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek, and that's in Psalms 110:4. So it's been a messianic prophecy, because I remember one of the things that distinguishes Protestants and Catholics is that the Catholics still have a sacrifice, the sacrifice that happens, of course, on the altar at every Mass. And this is something, of course, the Novus Ordo has tried to like reword things to make it look more like a meal. That's the way I think a lot of the Anglicans and the Lutherans, that's their perception of the Eucharistic sacrament. But the way the Catholics have always seen it is the unbloody sacrifice. And so, of course, Melchizedek, he was a Gentile who was a priest in the biblical Old Testament, and his order sacrificed not sheep, which was the the main order of like priests in the temple, but rather bread and wine. And so that is why, of course, priests today. And what does a priest do? A priest has sacrifices. So if Jesus is a priest forever, then he must be continually having sacrifices. And the representative, of course, of Jesus on earth is the Catholic priest, or the Altaris Christus. Was it Christus Altaris or something? It's a person of Christ. Persona Christi is like a person of Christ, but there's another. It's like Altrus Christus. I think it's the all other Christ. And so, of course, they take on the role of Christ when they're having the sacrifice of the Eucharist. And also, of course, the Eucharist becomes the substance of Christ, because the only thing that would appease God, the only thing that could grant us the graces necessary for salvation, is Christ himself. And so that's kind of like a interesting connection that I read in a book about altar serving, I believe. There's actually there's like a verse in the New Testament where Paul says like we'll always have an altar. Yeah, Hebrews 13:10. Yeah, and of course Protestants. You look up that app. The first thing is like Protestants saying like, "Oh, it's an altar of the heart." I am all silly prods. No, we have a real altar, big guy. Yeah, look up 13:10. People like start shelling. Oh, maybe it's not 13:10. It's somewhere 13. All right, now let me read what you guys are saying though. Rem says, "I hope it grants you strength. Go to the gym, okay?" Sure. Yeah, it does grant us strength because it grants us salvation. Dumptrick says, "Anime Redis, I want to know, shaking mind, really curious economy-wise. What do you want to know? Economy-wise, yeah. De fide dogma can never go away. Yes, the dogma of the faith has been pronounced through the charisma of infallibility. Ex cathedra is the word they use. Rem says, bless you. Okay. Dumptrick says, basically, I'm monitoring stocks and stuff on a semi-frequent basis. You know what has been happening there? I'm not sure what you mean about the stocks. I don't follow the stock market too well, big guy. I study economics and more on the theoretical side. Say it, says Ram. Say what? I'm interested. Just made a significant. I'm looking at like Ram trying to figure out what he's trying to say here. Made a significant. Who wants? Some of you guys need like. Okay, I'm like maybe I should just only read like super chats. Like some people, they like just think about what you're saying. I think you can say a lot in one line, right? So otherwise, I'm like I feel like I'm reading like something like I'm a schizophrenic or. I feel like that one guy from the what is it, The Amazing Life of Walter Mitty, where he's just like zones off and he like has these like schizo dreams. I'm starting to think that like my time streaming is these schizo dreams because nothing is coherent. Dungeon says every massive player, Buffett, Schiff, etc., are dumping U.S. bank stocks and buying up gold. Good deal of money, says Brem. Are they betting against U.S. economy? Well, no. It's the inflation rate is going to skyrocket. That's why. Gold is one of the few things that has like pretty much remained constant, and it's like a hedge against inflation. Is like a traditional asset. Is you buy gold, where you know that there's going to be times when the money supply is going to be unstable because of quantitative easing. The United States debt is about to skyrocket because there's going to be another coronavirus package, and they're also like going to give like a bunch of money to the post office, I believe, as well, because like they're worried that the post office won't be able to handle all the mail-in ballots. From what I read on the news. And of course there's going to be another relief package which is going to cost trillions of dollars, which means the Federal Reserve is going to have to print off more money to buy up bonds from the government. So that's going to infuse lots of new cash into the economy, creates inflation. So there you go. And I think also a lot of the Japanese buy on our debt as well. Do you follow a particular school of economics? I am a what are they called? Neoclassical school. I think that there are parts of the Austrian school of economics that are true. I think their conception of business cycles is more accurate. I used to be an Austrian economist, but I think that they're just too a priori and autistic about that. For my taste, I think that you have to be a little bit, you have to have some level of empiricism when doing economics. I don't think you can do everything a priori, so I think their methods are off. I think that there's a role for method. I think that that's like a meta-economics you can have. And I think some of what Mises wrote in Human Action is very helpful for that when diagnosing, why humans act and what they're acting towards. But the other thing about Mises is he was a materialist. He had no conception of like transcendental idealism like Kant did. So I don't think he has any right to use his terms of like synthetic a priori if he has no explanation of why we act amongst these synthetic a priori categories. Unless I guess maybe he was a determinist. Even and then it is like you'd have to explain genetically or why these categories still exist. Rem Representative says, "This is my well thought out comment. I want you to pay extra close attention. Daisuki. Ah, daisuki. That in Japanese means I love you. Love you too, big guy. Watashi wa Ram-san suki desu." Bro, you deleted my comment though. But then again, it was kind of a vulgar comment. When I retranslated it into Japanese, I made a pun. Like he was talking about he would sing "Happy Birthday" with me to my waifu. I made a pun. I was like, oh, okay, next time you can be the cream pie or something like that. But I put it in Japanese, and then the Japanese translation was very vulgar. Yeah. So there's that. I want to get that verse though. This is bothering me. The fact I can't find this verse about altars. So yeah, it was 1310. Was like, I guess somewhere around 1310. Okay, let me know if you have any more questions or concerns about some of the stuff I was talking about tonight. And also, we got a lot of new people here, but I was talking about this earlier. I found this book. I guess I didn't find it, but I brought it out tonight to talk to Spetnaz Groiper about some esotericism. Because people talk about Hyperborea, the Agarthan stool. Most people don't know is that J.R.R. Tolkien actually, when he was fighting World War I in the trenches, he was writing a diary. And it's because he discovered the ancient runes of elves and the real history of the Middle Earth, which later became Europa. A lot of people don't know this. But the human race, we actually, our lineage comes from elves, and so yeah, that's our real lineage. I don't even want to talk about the races. Other races, their lineage is a little different. Some of them might extend from the race of orcs. I don't know. I'm just kidding about that, by the way. Yeah, so yeah, and I guess in 13.9 or 13.10 it says we have an altar. So yeah, even the New Testament, it says that yeah, Catholics have an altar. Made a clip. Oh, YouTube deleted it? LMAO, that's funny. Yeah, they delete a lot of your comments too. And then it is like you have to explain genetically or why these categories still exist. Oh, that's a good clip. I might save that for later. Thanks. How do I get click out of this now? What? I look like I'm sniffling? I got like the slack off jerk off, aka what's his name? Zizek. Slavok Zizek. Slack off jerk off, where he's like he's always sniffling, he's like, and the I can't do a good accent of his, he's like, and the thing is and he's just like talking about like how the movie like Jaws is somehow a representation, a extended metaphor for the class conflict. I saw like a quote recently of his where he's like about Jaws is a metaphor of the class conflict between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, and he's like, oh yeah, this is one interpretation of Jaws. There's another interpretation where it's like against immigrants. Jaws represents the immigrants, and it's like a struggle against them. And he's just like, what is this guy doing? When are people gonna do real philosophy again? That's what I'd like to know. Like I had a communist teacher who played one of Slack-off jerk-offs, aka Zizek. I'm gonna keep saying that. You're not gonna stop me. I'm gonna bring that up forever. One of his like videos where he's talking about like the Catholic Church, and he's indicting the Catholic Church based on the a movie based on the play The Sound of Music, where he's like, the Catholic Church is full of hypocrisy because the nun wants the lady to be free, but she's a nun. Or something like that. It's just stupid. Thank you so much, Dump Trick Assy, for the diamond. He says, have you seen Colette's interview on Killstream? I feel like I know who that was. Was she the that one chick who was like really annoying, obnoxious on the Killstream? I think I even said something. The one that was like, yes, massa, just saying that to Ethan Ralph. Or is this like a new one? Because I saw that one was somewhat old. Swollen says, at least my pastors don't do sermons with sports ball references anymore. That's good. That's a good start. Though you shouldn't have pastors, bro. We need priests. Priests, bro. We have a sacrifice in the Catholic Church still. to reign over the graces necessary for salvation. This will have to be the next one I do about the Eucharist, because I feel like this is like the best argument Catholics can make about the Eucharist. Jesus said, "My flesh is flesh indeed. My body is food indeed. Anyone who does not eat of my body shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven." He doubled down. People even like left him. Jesus had a responsibility to make it exactly clear what he was trying to say. And if he was just saying it was a metaphor, then he literally, some people like left Jesus, implying that they lost their salvation, or that they had, they were had been betrayed. Look, they turned their back on Christ simply over a metaphor. I don't think so. Of course, I'm talking about, I think it's John 6, if you're looking for the reference. Dumptrick says he recited 14 words. Bruh, did he actually? Bruh, we need optics, guys. Optics check on Ethan Ralph. Collect is real ass ninja. He is highly unoptical, to be honest. Oh, is Colette? That's a guy? Oh, I'm retarded. I thought Colette was a girl. Oh, yeah, but he's a great guy and his optics are passable. True. He's not a Civnet, that's for sure. Keck. Well, none of us are, yeah. As Dumptrick said, none of us are Civnets. But generally, he's a great guy from what I've seen. John 6:35 through 68. Thank you for the reference. Exactly. I'll have to do a whole stream on, because this catechism has great things to say about it. Yeah, here it is, if you want the quote. And Jesus declared, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. But as I told you, you have seen me and still do not believe. All those the Father has given me come to me, and whoever comes to me, I will never drive them down." Blah, 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 blah. He says more stuff. At this time, the Jews are beginning to grumble about this, because he said, "I am the bread that came down from heaven." They said, "Is this not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How can he now say, 'I came down from heaven'? Stop grumbling amongst yourselves," Jesus said. What translation is this? New International? I wonder if it's so like lackluster and so casual. Such a casual translation. "No one can come to me unless the Father who sent them draws to me, and I'll raise them up on the last day. It is written in the prophets, they'll be taught by God. Everyone who has heard." Oh, okay. So he goes on and talks about some more stuff. This isn't the important part, though. Oh yeah, here it goes. This part here. "Your ancestors ate manna in the wilderness, yet they died. But here is the bread that comes down from heaven, which anyone may eat and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whosoever eateth this bread may live forever." I just went into my ipso facto, my modus operandi is a very different translation. "This bread is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world." Then the Jews began to argue sharply amongst themselves. "How can this man give us his flesh to eat?" It's very interesting that they say the Jews began to grumble, to argue amongst themselves. It differentiates Jesus from the Jews, implying that Jesus is the fulfillment of the Jewish law, and the Jews are the ones who are still retaining the people who are very skeptical of Jesus, and who still have their Jewish identity. Jesus, which is something that wingnats seem not to get. Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell unto thou, unless thou eateth the flesh of the Son of Man and drinketh his blood, you will have no life in you. Whosoever eateth my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day. For my flesh," and interesting, it says them up. The actual translation is him up. "For my flesh," they try to like SJW the verses here. "For my flesh is real food, and my blood is real drink. Whosoever eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood remains in me, and I in them. Just as the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so the one who feeds on me will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven. Your ancestors ate manna and died, but whosoever feeds on this bread will live forever." It's very explicit, guys. Very explicit. People are like, "How can you eat your flesh, big guy?" I don't get that. Jews will be like, "I don't understand. I'm very skeptical. Do you have a source for that?" Jews be like, "Yo, do you have a source?" Jesus be like, "Yeah, it's real. You better believe it. And if you don't believe it, you're not going to heaven." So, and then like Protestants be like, "Yeah, I think he was talking about a metaphor there, guys." Oh, thank you. You sent a link about what is this link from Harrods? .com. Awesome. Let's see what you guys are saying here. Mark Collette. Thank you, Ram, for putting his whole name. I have not seen Mark Collette's time on the kill stream. I was thinking of a different chick. Oh, yo, this guy is short. Either that or this chick is really tall. And very, very unoptical. Highly disavow the tattoo she has. So either this guy... This is kind of a funny picture. But either this guy's really... He's kind of good physiognomy, though. So either... This is GF. Or like... Either he's really short or this chick is insanely tall. Yeah, his GF's kind of unoptical. Now, what else are you guys talking about? All of D Live is lagging for me, says Foreskin Awakens. Is it because I decided to decline to update? Probably. Or that or your Wi-Fi. Because I turned my bit down very low. And also, it looks like the stream is running perfectly fine according to all my internal stats. So, it's you, big guy. No offense to the Foreskin Awakens. The Foreskin Awakens, I thought, is this guy one of the Protestants? Probably not, to be honest, says Rem. Foreskin Awakens says, not enough room. Don't want to delete anime waifus. Ha! Understandable, dude. Very understandable. You want an interesting article? Yeah, it's right here. Britain. Okay, thank you for signing it. Rem says, Jews aren't great with sourcing bold claims, especially math teachers. Okay, that's his ex-GF from Mark Collette, the neo-Nazi girl. Oh, look at this. Look at Haaretz.com. You have to subscribe for $1 a month. You got a paywall. You got to pay Goyim. Can't read our exceptional content for free. London. Britain ruled out to join the euro, but for now, but surprised critics on Monday by saying it may take another look at divisive currency debate next year. Oh, this is new. Wait, no, this is published. Bruh. This was published in 2003. To the euro. I'm pretty sure they use the euro, don't they? No wonder I was like confused. I was like, wait a minute. I thought for England did use the euro. I'm like, did they actually still have the pound? Well, I'm okay. It's a little bit outdated, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure, but correct me if I'm wrong. He's married. He has a daughter now. Mark Collette does. Good for him. You'll love to see that. Yeah, still he can't compare to Vincent James. Yeah, Vincent James is a Chad. He's Catholic. He's based on the issues. He's good on. He never misses. All right. Vincent James is pretty epic. I'll just say that much. Yeah, very true. As he has a past as a neo-Nazi, though, like Clay, most led down the path of white advocacy. I mean, a lot of people start off very radical, or I rather should say extreme. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people start off as extremists, and then they begin to moderate, and they're kind of a more nuanced worldview. Certainly, I was that way. I don't know if I would ever classify myself as a wingnut, perhaps, but maybe. I think we all kind of had like a phase where we're extremists. Then we start to realize there's a little bit more nuance. You know, it's not everything's race. But I don't want to get into that. It's like something you argue every night. Mr. James is great too. Yeah, Jameson. Physiognomy check on Vincent. Okay, yeah, let's do that. Vincent James physiognomy check. The guy who's good at physiognomy checks is Steve Franson. You know, like that's kind of what he's known for. I think he actually has like a degree or something in like marketing, or I don't even know what he hit, but he somehow relates physiognomy to like his profession. This dude here, yeah, this looks like this looks like Vince James, right? Yeah, Vince James. Yeah, he's got a nice jawline there. Let's see, it's hard to see his eyes, but usually his eyes light up. He's a very masculine voice. I wish I had Vincent James like voice the way he talks. Like people have often said my voice is very effeminate. Or not very effeminate, but somewhat like demasculated. There's another faggy is another word people have used to describe my voice, which it's kind of hurtful, guys. I don't know. There's nothing I can do about it. But yeah, he's a masculine guy. Look at him. He's very well ripped there. Very strong. A lot of male energy, a lot of testosterone going on here. He talked with Patrick Little. Well, that was one of the best interviews I've seen. Is Patrick Little versus Nick Fuentes, because they're both like kind of hotheads. Obviously, I agree with Nick Fuentes more than Patrick Little, but it's just funny seeing them both like get mad at each other. And then Patrick was like, "I'm gonna duel you, but I can't because of the Jews." And Nick Fuentes is like, "Oh no, I think it was Jake Lloyd or who's like, fuck the troops." It's just funny, their interaction. Yeah, so Vincent James had a debate with Destiny. It was pretty good. And then they had a follow-up with John Lott. John Lott is basically like this expert in statistics relating to anything about guns. Yeah, Vincent James is cool. Oh, you sent another image? Let me see. Yeah, look at this one, yeah. Really highlights his muscular, well-toned body here. Yeah. He's ready for the war. When the war pops off, he's ready. Moshe Finkenstein says, "Don't be a Nazi." I'm not, dude. Trust me, I'm not a Nazi. Not even. Okay, I am so much not a Nazi that I've literally been spending way too much of my time debating them, or at least National Socialists, the NatSoc guys. They've yeah, there's very non-insignificant like differences between us. There very much is significant differences, rather. Yeah, National Socialism is obviously not neither pragmatic nor is it optical, nor is it something is like ideologically I support. So, and I had a huge debate on my channel talking about this. So it's like, anyone who accuses me of being like a National Socialist is literally branded. I will pull up the debate and put it in the chat. Okay, yeah. Are we really gonna quote my voice being effeminate? I was like quoting you guys saying that. I'm not the one who said it. You are. Patty Little is great. Fuentes. Oh, whoa. Fuentes is nice. Fuentes has done more for the right than Patrick Little has. That's for sure. Patrick Little, I think he's got the right ideas of being like a educational candidate. I think that's a real thing. I think Ron Paul did a good job of that. I think if you look at the effects of Ron Paul and for libertarianism, he was able to like really jumpstart like a whole movement of like young libertarians who were just got brought in because they're interested in like ending foreign wars and legalizing pot. And then once they kind of like got into the libertarian these concepts, they're able to be warmed up to ending the Federal Reserve and more free market ideas. That's how Ron Paul kind of was able to be an educational candidate. So I could see Patrick Little doing something like that, where he talks about ending foreign wars and sending money to Israel, and he even talked about giving reparations to minorities by taxing a lot of, I think, taking away some of the money spent to Israel and giving it to them as reparations for slavery. Which, by the way, I actually looked it up. There's the involvement in the slave trade amongst Jewish people. I haven't seen a whole lot of evidence that they were the ones running it. If someone has other evidence and they want to show me, send it to me. But they were involved, but not significantly overrepresented. There was 2% of the major slave owners, or excuse me, major slave traders were Semitic. So I kind of don't see why. I see why it would be a good something to run on, to kind of red pill people, but I would probably disagree with that. But instead, Patrick Little just runs up to people, instead of being an educational candidate who puts out these ideas we all agree with about ending foreign wars, and then start talking about world Jewry, the World International Jewish Congress, instead of being and just being tactical like Nick Fuentes is, talking about the USS Liberty. Instead, he just runs up to people and has signs that says Jews rape kids, and things that are very inflammatory that make people emotionally upset, and that's just not going to win the day. And then he said he got most of ideas from Uber. He quit his job. He's it's so weird. Who quits their job at because they won't give you time to read Culture of Critique? That's just kind of something people weren't stable to. I will agree with Nick there. As well, what else? He also said anyone who supports Israel has to have receive the death penalty. Anyone who proposes a bill in Congress which wants to give money to Israel or support Israel in any way, which it's a capital crime, which is just like it's just like silly talk. I'm not even going to debate the cogency or the utility of such a law, because it's like this might as well be talking about privatizing roads or private courts that ANCAPs talk about, or like the owners are owning all the means of production like socialists. It's like useless to talk about something that like ridiculous. Here's the debate, by the way. It's an unlisted video, so you have to have the link if you want it. There you go. Alright, let me read through some of you guys are saying now. Patrick is most based American Lives representative. That was Sean and Beardson, actually. Okay, yeah, okay, Sean, that was with them. Gotcha. Moshe Finkelstein says, little flew a blimp that says Jews rape kids. Yeah. So you're like, what does that accomplish? Like, you think people are going to look that up? Or you think people are going to be like, no, this guy is off the goop. Give Pat a pat. Dude, you're okay, says Finkelstein. Rem says, anime rights, you're not a nut sock, okay? And you're still my friend. I like you too, Rem. Call me. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. He's like, he's never mind. I don't even want to get in the meme about it. People are just gonna call me gay. He's a complete puss. Nick Fuentes is. I don't know. He staged the whole war on Conservative Inc. I don't see you doing a good job with that. I see you're like camp getting ghettoized and isn't getting like isn't having like their own packs and is getting rather doxxed. Their involvement is overrepresented per capita in like what, the slave trade, or just in general? Because in general, yeah, I know there's very overrepresented in Hollywood and media, and investment banking. You missed jaywalking. Okay, according to Nation of Islam, yeah, I know Nation of Islam. It says these things, and a lot of people, of course, like going to try to fact check that. Jews owned 18 of 18 rum distilleries in colonial Boston and 22 of 22 in Newport. Yeah, I know that the Nation of Islam has made that claim a lot, and that's why a lot of people have actually engaged with that view, whereas they really don't engage too much with like culture of critique. They kind of just write it off as propaganda, probably because they see like black anti-Semitism as a bigger threat than white anti-Semitism, since it's like they gotta keep everyone under control. Which is why, you know, Nick Cannon lost his job because of what he said about Jewish people, which was true, which is 100% factual. They do have overrepresentation in media. Nick Fuentes isn't tactical, he's just gay and weak. Unless you have like a particular example of that, I wouldn't really suggest making fun of Fuentes, because he's done a lot more for the right than you or Sean Spencer or any of your, like, I don't even know who your hero would be. Like, as I know you said you didn't like Sean Spencer, Rem. Dash McQueen says, Pat Little autistical, yeah. Self-immolated. Yeah, he should have listened to Nick, very true. Moshi says, I got booted from both Fuentes and Casey's chats for mentioning Jews in a non-critical way. What did you say about Jews, Moshi? Nick should have listened to Pat and been a man. Just made a clip. Click here to watch. Always making the clips. Patrick is most based American Lives representative. That was Sean and Beardson, actually. Okay, yeah, okay, Sean, that was with them. Gotcha. Okay. I don't know. I don't sound that bad, honestly. I'm like listening to the clip. I'm like, I sound okay. Moshi says, yes, in the slave trade, it makes sense because they were the merchants and they lost money. Yeah, they were. But I'm just saying they weren't overrepresented. Like, significantly. I think probably marginally so. I saw like an article like where they went through and like looked at like the like which companies were involved, and one of the claims was that like the Dutch East India Trading Company was involved in the slave trade, and it wasn't. And like, and of course in the Dutch East India Trading Company, Jews were like significantly overrepresented. So that's somewhere like the confusion came from. But like I said, I'm trying to look at this from the most objective lens possible. So if you have like counter evidence, I'm not like opposed to seeing it. Anyone who knows about me knows that I'm very much red-pilled on the JQ. I very much know about what's going on. It's just this issue that I haven't like seen much anything like really like hard evidence for. I don't even think like it was brought up in the Culture of Critique, which is like probably one of the best books you can read on this subject, because it's like the most like thorough academically speaking. Pat Little is a Wignat failure. Yeah, Nick is succeeding fantastically. Yeah, Nick Fuentes is like his audience's outreach's impact is very much disparate compared to someone like Patrick Little or I don't even know, Sean Spencer, any of the other Wignats. Usually, according to Moshe Anjus, I just quote stats. I don't get into name-calling stuff. Okay, yeah, neither do I. Was the article written by a Jewish person? Yeah. I think it actually was. Yeah, it was written by a Jewish person. But in it, they, like, cite their sources. And also, I mean, it's like... But in it, they recognize the reason why I took it seriously is because in the article they recognized like there was Jewish involvement, but they like put it in proportion. They gave like specific numbers, and it was like pretty insignificant. Like they gave the exact numbers of like how many there were, and it was like I looked at it was like 5% of slave traders like were Jewish or something, and it's like that's not very much overrepresentation. Yeah, please, if you study it more, because I want to be objective, because otherwise. You people won't take you seriously if you cite things that are inaccurate. So, but now their overrepresentation in Hollywood is very well categorized. The representation amongst like 40%, like basically almost half of billionaires. Like if you look at the heads of like major media corporations, if you look at the and of course most of the media is owned by large conglomerates, so it's not even like CNN. It's like people think of large media now. You got to think like a Viacom. CBS was known by Sumner Redstone up until his death like a few weeks ago, and now it's owned by his like daughter Ari Redstone, and his actual name was like Rothstein. He changed it to Redstone. Viacom. CBS owns like MTV, CBS. It owns like Nickelodeon. It owns like a huge, like it's a multi-intermedia, international conglomerate. And so like all those are very much overrepresented in by Jewish people. I think in commercial, like in banking. I don't know if Jews are represented, but I think in investment banking they are. Like the World Monetary Institute or whatever. Like George Soros is, I know, part of that. Yeah, big names, big. And then we got. I mean, look, man. Harvey Weinstein, Epstein doesn't seem like a Presbyterian problem. And by the way, they admit this too, that they have like disparate control of Hollywood, and like there's like some like author in like the LA Times, and I've quoted this so many times, so you can watch one of my previous streams to see it. Like literally the last stream I did, I talked about it, where he goes through and names all of them and says he's glad that they're in control. Moshi says there used to be a news website called Anime Right. Were you part of that? No, actually I wasn't. The Anime Right news website, from what I heard, is very similar like the Eminem, Murdoch type of like wignattery. I was never involved in that. I came on the scene actually kind of recently, kind of a newer streamer. So if you're following them, or if you're watching for the first time, please do follow, do support our channel. I stream Monday through Friday, philosophy and anime streams, and I stream on Sunday a theology stream, which probably, if you guys don't have any more questions, I'll probably end pretty soon. I appreciate you guys joining us. Yeah, it sounded like it was a fun site, but no, I was not involved in that, unfortunately. But you can also like find me on YouTube. That's where I'll be uploading this stream after it finishes. And you can also if you want to support me monetarily speaking, I have a Patreon. If you're interested in joining our Discord, please reach out to me over one of my social media platforms, Twitter or Instagram, because that's where I do call-in shows for people who donate. Which if Dumptrick passes, Dumptrick wants to join the call-in since he donated. If he's still watching and he wants like a question or something, he's welcome to. No problem, big guy. Oh yeah, about time he comes back, says Ram. But yeah, I'm also working on trying to arrange some more Bloodsport debates. I'm working on trying for this Friday. I want to get a debate about psychedelics. I have to talk to some people involved and make sure that everything works out. And I'm also working on a debate. I want to do an IVF debate, maybe a pagan versus Christian, a Catholic versus Protestant debate. If you're interested in anything like that, If you're, or even like an abortion debate, any like thing like that. If you're interested, let me know, and I can hook you guys up. Or if you know people who would be interested in debating something like that, let me know. I'm gonna try to be like the moderator, unless it's something I know really well, like maybe the pagan versus Christian one. I'd be willing to do. Interesting. Ooh, says Rem. Base says Dump Trick Tech. I'll debate abortion deaths. Rem, what are you? Are you pro-choice? Oh, he is pro-abortion. Okay, for eugenic purposes. Okay, maybe I'll talk to we'll talk to, what is that one dude's name? There's this one guy whose name is slipping my mind. I know his actual name because I know him personally, but I'm not gonna dox him. What frick? Alright, whatever. He's a guy, he's in the Discord, he's a cool guy, and he was really like passionate about like abortion topics, so he'd be willing to talk. Mike Enoch is his username. Yeah, so I'll talk to him, see if I can figure out something. Yeah, Mike Enoch. But I'd like it to be private for doxing purposes. Well, I mean, it's gonna be like, if you're gonna debate, it's gonna be like a stream debate. Otherwise, like, what's the point? I can make the YouTube video unlisted, so you have to have a link, and then I'd only give the link out to like special people, but you can figure out ways to change your voice if you want. Moshi says, I'm pro-choice because I don't like minding other people's business. Oh, Moshi, are you a libertarian? If so, would you be willing to debate about libertarianism versus like paleoconservatism, or even pro-choice versus because I know there are lots of libertarians who even pro-life. Let me know. Morally, I agree it's bad in most cases, but overall I think it's beneficial, says Rem. Okay, yeah, but I have the YouTube video unlisted. Yes. Okay, so he says he's willing to do it, just have unlisted YouTube video. Sure. I'll talk to Enoch later tonight. Let me see, is he up right now? I can like try to get him in the Discord. Let's see what's he up to. Oh no, he's on the Discord. He looks like he's signed out. Well, yeah, I'll ask him. Thank you for that suggestion. Any other ones you guys want? You're not a good debater? No worries, big guy. Mashi, it's not that serious, Des. Most people are nice here. Yeah, we're pretty chill. Shoot, I have cap locks on and it makes it sound like I'm screaming at Enoch. So I'm just gonna tell him a guy I know wants to debate you on abortion. Alright, I'll let him know. Okay. Only person who's a beta male is the dude with the Emoto complex. Who's that? Is that me? Most people are... Oswald? Oh, you're talking about Oz? Dude, he doesn't have an Emoto complex. You were just saying things are kind of like... that were considered like very uncouth, man. Unprofessional for the environment. Things about like fucking his sister. Like, it's one thing if you're gonna use that type of language to talk about anime characters, which you have, and it's still vulgar, and something I wouldn't recommend. Kind of makes you, look, something looks licentious, but, nah, going after the sister is a little bit crossing the line. I gotta stand up for the guy. I'll debate political solution versus no political. Yeah, we're not having that debate. Sorry, that's a good way to get my channel shut down. If you're not for a political solution, then go get yourself arrested. That's all I have to say. If you're not for a political solution, then stop being a beta and do whatever you want to do. And if you get arrested, thrown in jail, the death penalty, and then you get your country screwed over, where they're going to now start banning assault rifles, and they're going to use this as the pretext to go after all right-wingers, and basically it'll be the burning of the Reichstag. It'll give them all the political capital the Marxists want. to now suddenly say they go like hate speech laws. It's all gonna come in if the people aren't smart. So no, not debating that ever. Most people once a year. I'll debate. Rem's solution to sorry for my cut comment. It's work. Ooh, it's all good, big guy. Yeah, creepy. It was kind of creepy. It was like hitting on. It was like saying very weird things about. I didn't even see some of them, but Oswald was saying Rem was saying some weird things about his sister. Doesn't he want his sister to have a good man? I'm sure he does, but Alright, I got a response from Mike Enoch. Let's see if I can get him in the VC real quick. I can talk to him. But what is he saying? Yeah, I'm sure he wants to be with a good man, but he doesn't know you, so why would he set that like you're talking about it? And no, he doesn't want his sister to be with me. And I don't want to be with the sister. Sister doesn't like me. I don't mean violence, Baka. Oh, my apologies. If you didn't mean violence, my apologies. I thought you were referring to violence. That's usually what people mean when they say no solution. Usually talking about like, what's that one guy that wrote Siege? Confirmed Wignat, yeah. Well, Rem is, I think he says he's a Wignat, or at least he's like, he may not call himself that, but basically, he's in between Natsock, which is like full-blown Wignat, and Amnat. Right? He won't come around. Come home. Or as Orange always says, come home to the Amnats. I mean changing psychology and culture as opposed to in politics in terms of overall importance. Baka, baka, baka. Oh, James Mason. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Sometimes my brain has a little like short circuit. So I appreciate the comments always helping me out, filling me in. You're a great audience. I love it. Yeah, I'm sorry, Ram. I just imagine Ram is like going baka baka baka. That's like that one in Arrow Manga Sensei. This girl yells it really loud. It's really funny. Let's see if I can find it. She gets like super upset too. Like she has this really cute pouty face. It's like total baka moment. Tell me, here it is. It's so funny. This is all I think about when Ram says baka. This is a funny video, guys. Sorry, a little off topic, but she's kind of quiet, so she has to like set up speakers. This might. Hopefully, this isn't too loud. Yeah, it just screams at the top of her lungs. Baka baka baka. Let's see. Yeah, it's pretty. I just thought that was a pretty funny moment. Baka moments in anime. At least he didn't call me Aho. Aho is like worse. How funny is the sundry moments?
まさか自転車乗れないんじゃ。うっさーい！自転車に乗れないからってなんだってのよ。つまりは運べればいいんだろうが。
I don't even remember this part from Toy.
間違えてるぞ。
I'm not gonna call him Baka. Oh wait. Sundries, I respect sundries. I am a sundry stander. Well, let's see what they're like. Chaco. Rem says, I'm not even American, you cock. Oh, true, yeah, you can't be an Amnat. Limo, that's a good point. Wingnats are always between two male genitalia. Oh, man. Wingnats are always between two They like the little kids, dude. They're into that. 1 second, I'll be right back. Someone is knocking on my door, so I gotta figure out what's going on right there. Sorry about that. That was my brother. He was telling me that he was just informing me that my father was sleeping and I need to keep my voice down. So I'm just going to hold the mic up to my face like most streamers do so you guys can hear me okay. Let me know if there's any audio trouble. But I have to kind of like talk quieter now. My family's upset at me. They're pissed off. Swollen T says Siege has some good advice, but it kept on flip-flopping frequently. I've never read Siege, but It's good to know. Thank you for letting me know. Like in an article about linkage, which was Optics 101, that warned about the dangers of guilt by association. Okay, that's smart. Yeah. Clip the part of you saying baka baka baka. I missed it. If not, I'll grab it later tonight, but I'll work early morning. I mean, someone else can clip it, just going baka baka baka. Oh, Mike Enoch said he'll join me soon. That's cool. I'll put that down so when he joins, so we can talk about the debate. Dumptrick says, I mean, I'm not American either. Yet my values will fully align with Abnet. Yeah, so you can still not be American and understand the universal and truth behind, like, you know, these our principles. Rem says, God, I wish that Mike were me. You want me to deep throat the mic? Is that what you're saying? I'm just kidding. That's what like a PewDiePie did in one of his episodes. It's pretty funny. Like he was using Jacksepticeye's mic and he just starts like deep throating it. It was like so random, like just in the middle of like what he was doing. Sorry, I'm a PewDiePie file. So, let's see. Orange says, "Why isn't your dad staying up to watch the stream?" My parents don't watch the stream. My parents are moderate conservatives. They were never Trumpers. If they actually heard a lot of the stuff I said, they'd probably kick me out of the house. Okay, this is a funny story. Okay, so one time, I worked at a place there. They cussed a lot, so I've kind of like that's been ingrained in my vocabulary. But my parents are very sensitive to swearing, so like if I ever even use the word like "what the hell," then my parents get upset. So one time I was in the car with my brother, and I don't know why I was really upset. I think he like made some mistake in directions, so I just like started cussing, like just went off on him. I was like, "Fuck you, dude!" And I was just throwing out F words, and I thought it was cool because I was in the car. It was a public road. I wasn't in my parents' house, and I was 18. Like I was over 18. I get home, my brother snitches on me. He tells my parents that I was like swearing at him. I apologize for getting angry because I recognize that like I'm not supposed. It was an unjust moment of outrage. Shouldn't be doing that. Then I'm like, yeah, I mean, it was my car. Like swearing is not. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And then I'm like, it's probably like a venial sin. And then my parents are like, get out of the house. You're out for 24 hours. So I grab my anime film and we head to and I had a car then, thankfully. And I head off to a hotel to spend the night. And I was doing finals too, so I had to like study for finals at the hotel. So yeah, that's an interesting story. All because I like swore. Because I was like, it's not a big deal. I was in my car. It was a public road. What are you going to do about it? Like, I guess I was asking for trouble by like saying that. But yeah. Hey, what's up? Yeah, what's going on, Enoch? So, Rem representative said that he would be interested in like debating the ethics of abortion. We're on stream, by the way. So I was hoping I can interact with him. And so he was interested in he was asking if he could like do a debate about like abortion, and his stance was that he thinks it's like usually wrong, but he thinks that it's helpful for eugenic purposes. So maybe you could just like say
interesting.
Yeah, what is like your stance? You're like a deontologist, so you'd probably think it's like always wrong.
Yeah.
A priori, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I think that like the taking of an innocent human life,
yeah,
especially your own flesh and blood, right, is evil, fundamentally evil. And I think that like especially the idea that the state is gonna, so not only are the parents evil in killing their unborn child, but the state is going to be complicit in this, either by subsidizing it or by forcing people. I don't know what his exact position is on it, but I know other people in the dissident right. Like I've read some of what Greg Johnson has to say about this, that like basically if somebody has like a mixed race baby, they either have to abort it or they get kicked out of the country. And I think that's just fundamentally evil. You're forcing somebody to kill their own flesh and blood, and the state being complicit in that when the state's supposed to be a moral entity is just
certainly that makes sense to me. That's certainly my stance. Let me see if Rem responds. I know he's at work, but yeah, so that's a good
I just got off
standpoint. So what does your like availability look like? I'm trying to set this up now because all my other debates like everyone's like I'll get back to you on availability. So I'm trying to like set these things up.
Yeah.
Do you know like do you have like a time frame or like certain days you don't work? You know for sure. I know your school is about to start as well, right?
Yeah. So I got school and But I'm still definitely interested in this.
Okay.
Let's see.
Let me know, Rem, your ability to come.
So I don't have a consistent schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't have a consistent schedule, but like this week I'd be available Friday. That's not a lot of time to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
But or I can just wait and I'll get my schedule maybe like midweek, and I can tell you when I'll be available the next week, so we both have time to get together, like study